Have you ever had one of those seasons where it feels like life just keeps slapping you in the face? Every time you think you're getting somewhere, something else just goes wrong. And entrepreneurship has this way of making you experience every emotion on the planet in this really compressed period of time. One week you're just smashing it out the park. And then the next week you're thinking to yourself, like, am I even going to get anywhere with all of this? Over the last 10 years, I've had businesses flop and I've had to start over again more than once. Looking back now, there are like a handful of things that got me through those seasons. And one of them I didn't even fully understand until everything that I'd been trying to keep together in one of my businesses just fell apart. And I think most people, when they go on this journey, they kind of know it's going to be challenging, right? But I don't think any of us are really prepared for how challenging it's actually going to be when you're doing everything that you can, but nothing seems to make a difference. And when your mates are asking you like, oh, how are things going? You're not trying to have that conversation. And if you're watching this or listening to this, I know you've probably been there, and I can think of many times where I have. I remember this one particular business where everything was just catching up with me, man. And for a very, very long time, like I'd been telling myself in that particular business that I was going to be able to turn it around. I'd come up with all these different ideas, and every time it didn't work, I thought to myself, just give it another month. Give it another month and you'll somehow make this work. But I think deep down, I already knew that things were just way too far in the wrong direction. I just don't think I was willing to fully admit it to myself. I remember one afternoon, like sitting down, looking at the numbers. And if I'm honest, I already knew what I was going to see, but I was hoping to like find some kind of hope in all of that. So I was looking at what was coming in, what was going to go out, and the numbers didn't add up. The math was not mathing. And I could see if we continued down that path that it was just going to be really dread in a few months' time. And being honest, at that time, like I reached this point where I think I'd just lost the spark for everything. Every time I sat down to work on it, I just thought to myself, I don't want to be doing this anymore. And I feel a lot of people experience that. Like when you go through this prolonged period of things not going your way and then the financial implications of that, you just lose this spark, and sometimes you can just want to avoid the work that you need to do. And it's counterintuitive, but when you lose that kind of spark for what you're doing, you don't want to do it. So then you end up in a worse situation because you're not taking the action, or you're not making different decisions that are going to take you in a different direction. So then I did what a lot of people probably do, and like you start numbing everything in terms of like you find distractions. So my distractions were watching shows that I'd already watched before on Netflix or Disney or whatever, right? So you're doing these things that take your mind away from dealing with what you need to be dealing with. And I know a lot of you have probably been there before, right? So my story in terms of the business itself was not a happy ending. And eventually at the time, my worst fear happened. The business closed. What I had spent months trying to avoid and in fear of finally happened. And I thought that I was going to be devastated, right? I thought I was going to be devastated when I closed this business down because I'd been fearing doing that and avoiding doing that for so long. But that is not what happened. I did not feel devastated. The first thing that I felt was absolute relief. And I remember thinking, this is how it feels to be free. I'm finally free. Free to stop forcing something that I knew was ultimately not going to work. Free to stop carrying so much flipping stress around with me every single day. And, ultimately free to do something else. I'd spent months believing that the business failing was going to be the worst thing that happened to me. And then when it happened, I realized that the months leading up to it had actually been far worse. That had been the torture. It was like I'd been living on the edge of a cliff, looking down over the edge for months. And I think the freedom feeling came from having nothing left to wonder about. It was done, right? So I know where I stand. And I've thought a lot about why I felt like that at that time. Why did I feel that much relief? And I think it comes back to something that I didn't fully understand at that time. Later, I came across what's called sunk cost fallacy, and it explains our tendency to keep investing in something just because we've already invested so much in terms of time, energy, focus, and all of that. So you end up telling yourself, I've come this far in this, like I can't possibly stop now. And that's why I think letting go of businesses that you ultimately know aren't really going to work out is so difficult for some of us. And I didn't realize how trapped I felt until I wasn't trapped anymore. When you're in the middle of something like that, like I don't think you truly understand what it's doing to you, because the stress that you feel, how trapped you feel, all of that stuff, right? It just becomes normal to you at the time because you've raised this level of tolerance for it that you don't even notice it anymore. And then when it's gone, you realize how much of that rubbish you'd been carrying, because you've got this stark contrast of that heavy feeling that you had and then how light you feel now. And even if you feel that heaviness, right? Even if you can feel that within yourself at the time, I don't think you realize how light you can actually feel after you've moved on from those things. And around that time, and still until now, I say this one thing, like I kept repeating to myself, everything's always working out for me. And at that time, if you'd heard me saying that, you'd probably think like, get a grip, mate. Really? Is it really working out for you? Because these numbers, they're not saying that things are working out for you. When I say things are always working out for me, I don't mean that I believe I'm going to get the specific outcome that I want. What's that saying? Show God your plans and listen to him laugh. I was reminding myself that no matter what direction things go in, things ultimately have a funny way of making sense afterwards, right? And when I think about it, some of the best things that have happened in my life have happened due to something else coming to an end. So if I could go back and have a chat with myself back then, I would probably say, stop holding on to all these things so tightly. It's unraveling. You can't see what comes next, but there'll come a day when you look back on all of this so differently because you have the fuller picture. And some seasons just don't make sense until you are through them. So if you're going through these challenging periods in your business right now, I would say the same thing to you. Because if I were to look back at all of these hurdles that came up along the way, in isolation at the time, it felt like, oh, like, why is this happening? Like, this is another problem that's coming up. But if you allow it, those things can build you and you can get through them. And as Les Brown says, it's not over until you win.